So, good morning, everyone. You are in the right place if you're curious to understand about condos versus life leases. Oftentimes, as we transition from our family homes, we have a lot of living options, whether it's retirement living, whether it's condo, whether it's just downsizing to a smaller home, whether it's life lease. And it can be a really hard decision to make the decision as to what is right for you. So today we're just going to focus in on two types because this is the common situation I see of older adults going, well, we like the idea of a condo, but we like the idea of a life lease, and we're not sure which to choose. So I'm putting the two of them essentially head to head today, side by side comparison, so that you can truly understand both concepts. And I'm not saying you'll make a decision today by any means, but I'm hoping this will give you a little bit more clarity if one of these options feels like a better fit for you. There is no right answer in any of this, and that's the best part. So for those of you that haven't had a chance to meet me before, my name's Jolyn Hall. I'm an agent with Schmidt Realty Group. So I am a licensed real estate agent, but my background actually started as a registered nurse with home care case managers, as a case manager with home care. And then I moved into seniors housing on management teams, and I've worked non-for-profits as well as for-profits and been part of a management team that opened a new retirement living residence in Edmonton. But about 2 years ago, I started Edmonton 55, which is my own company, to help older adults manage these transitions and questions. And along the way, I also got my real estate license because I really strongly believe that our housing environment sets the tone for our health and wellness as we age. And being in the right home environment really sets the tone. And so today I am putting my real estate hat on for this presentation because we are talking about condos, and it does give me the ability to speak about condos and things along that line. So I'm doing this under my real estate hat today, but also truly understanding 55 plus housing options. So really I help older adults manage housing transitions and options and aging in place, A to Z, kind of all of it. So that's my background. So today, we're going to make sure you fully understand the structure of a condo. We're going to dive into exactly what the structure of a life lease can look like. We're going to go through the benefits and risks of both of them, and I'm going to look at them side by side so that you can really see apples to oranges what the options look like, and a little bit of a discussion on how to make the best decision for you and your circumstances. So let's dive in. So a condo. A condo is strictly a form of ownership. So a condo, or condominium is the long name, can be any setting. Most people, when they hear the word condo, they think of an apartment style building, but that's just one type of condo. That's called a conventional condo. When it's generally a big building, there's individual suites or apartments. And as a whole, you form this ownership piece of it all. And so with condo, there can also be other options. There can be townhouse condos, there can be adult bungalow village that are condos. There can be different duplex complexes that are condos. There are acreages that are condos. So a condo is strictly a form of ownership and many different types of properties in there. So you can look at apartment style condos, you can look at an adult bungalow village, but they're all essentially a condo when they have a communal ownership. When you're in a single family dwelling, you own that land, you own that building. In a condo, you own your suite or home, but the common spaces, driveways, hallways, social rooms, all of those are collectively owned by the condo corporation. So bare lands condo is when land is involved. So you might have a bungalow, duplex, townhouse, and you own a parcel of land and all the structures that are on it. And that's called a bare lands condo. But there's many different types of condos. So we're kind of lumping them all together, whether you're looking at an apartment condo or an adult bungalow condo, all of that's your choice. But just realize it's all encompassing. It means a lot of those options. So life lease. So it's kind of an in-between land. You're not renting, you're not owning. Somebody has signed an agreement that you have exclusive rights to that property, which is usually a suite, for the duration of your life. It is a life lease. So it is more in depth than a rental agreement. But you don't have all the same ownership responsibilities or rights as if you owned it. So most life leases start with an equity payment. So you pay in to get this long lease, and that might be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. However, they've structured that. You pay that lump sum at the start, and then you still pay a monthly payment. So where life leases get popular is that they're often what's called a curated community. They have a theme, a focus, a demographic, a population that they do focus on. And so generally you're going to find a lot of like-minded individuals there. So it is a restricted community that you put an equity payment into. So let's start doing side by side. So how do you get into a condo? With a condo, often you do need to do research with a real estate agent or going on MLS, looking for your criteria. How many bedrooms, what type of parking, do you want age restricted or not? As you find the right one, you make an offer to purchase. You then have ownership transferred, so titles transfer, money transfers, all that fun stuff. But in a condo, whether it's an adult bungalow or a high rise, the board of directors, the condo corporation, nobody knows who's moving in until they move in. They don't have a say. You have the right to own any of those suites that you choose to purchase. And then as part of being a condo purchaser, you get access to what's called a condo document review, where the seller must provide all of the documents about the building, including bylaws. So you get to see rules and regulations in advance. You get to decide if it's the right fit and right type of community, right type of atmosphere, right type of building and structure that you want. A life lease, generally you research on your own. Christensen Developments, Lions Club are some of the most popular life leases in Edmonton. You make an application to live there. Because it is a curated community, they decide if you will be granted the opportunity to live there. And sometimes they share the rules in advance, and most times you have to ask in advance to what those rules and regulations are. So, sorry, is that flipped forward? So just understand, with a condo, you're picking the community for you. In a life lease, you're picking the community, but you need permission to join it. Payments. So a condo, you're responsible for purchase price, legal fees. As part of that purchase, you may do an inspection, you may do a condo document review, and then your monthly condo fees in Edmonton and area are often $150 to $600 a month. And so those include different things, usually reserve fund contribution, common area insurance, might include some cleaning and operating expenses. So all of that's included in your monthly condo fee, and it really depends whether you're bare lands condo, conventional condo, size of your property, amenities and inclusions as to where your fee falls. And sometimes you have utilities included, especially in apartment style condos, heat and water included is fairly common. If you're more in a Barelands bungalow type condo, then generally all the utilities are usually your expense. In a life lease, you put that large equity payment down at first, similar to a purchase price. You may have a damage deposit as well. And then generally you still have monthly service fees. So often 800 to 1800 is kind of the range I've seen in Edmonton. But a lot of Life Lease has a lot of add-ons that you can choose what you want added on. So your fee monthly may be even higher than that. And you often have some utilities included. So heat, water, cable are quite often included, but it does vary from property to property. So personalizing your suite. A condo is your space, decorate it as you want. Put up 2 million pictures on the wall, paint the wall red, purple, and orange if you want. No one's going to stop you from that. Most renovations you can do without approval. Some renovations you will need some approval, especially if you're an apartment style condo. They may want to know what type of flooring you're approving and may have some regulation about that. If you're going to do loud work like you're gutting a place, or if you're on a Barelands condo, if you're putting on new shingles, you may have to apply by, their brands and types. So you may have some restrictions, but for the most part, you want a new kitchen, you can usually just submit your plans and get a new kitchen. On a life lease, they may have rules about decorating. You may be limited to what you can put up for pictures or shelving or hanging things. You will probably be able to do very little in terms of renovation. So you might be able to paint, but in terms of changing the flooring, changing the counters, changing cabinets, yes and no. It really is dependent on the contract you have. And pretty much anything you'll do in your suite will need approval. And oftentimes there may be a clause asking you to return it to original when you are vacating the suite. So yeah, we may let you paint a wall purple, but you might have to turn it back to the beige before you leave the suite. So very different abilities in your level of personalization. And for some people that's important, and for others it's not. In terms of maintenance, a lot of times as we're downsizing from our family homes or other residences, we're trying to find a maintenance-free lifestyle. And so there's definitely some advantages for both condos and life lease in this way. In a condo, generally the exterior, the common areas are all managed by the condo corporation. So you're not having to often worry about siding or vacuuming hallways and things like that in the building. You generally are responsible for maintenance in your suite. So the nice thing is most condos have some preferred vendors where you can bring your own plumber or you can use theirs. And then in a condo, there's such a thing as a reserve fund that manages large building expenses that may come up in the future, like replacing the elevators, redoing the siding, redoing the shingles in an apartment style condo, or repaving roads in an adult bungalow village. So part of your condo fees go into that reserve fund so that those costs can be managed. Or occasionally they have to issue what's called a special assessment when they don't have enough money in the reserve fund and need to collect that from others. So a life lease usually has on-call maintenance or caretaker. Sometimes it's somebody who lives on site. The owner of the building is usually responsible for maintenance in your suite. So if you've got a leaky toilet or faucet, they will often fix that. What you really have to watch in your contract is big maintenance and future expenses, because life leases haven't been around for a really long time in Edmonton and area. And so each has a different contract and different bylaws. and haven't really run into a lot of issues of major repairs like redoing the exterior, redoing windows, redoing balconies. But you want to know what their plan is. Will they assume all of that cost? Are they deducting it from your equity payment? Or will they also charge special assessments or increase fees to cover those large maintenance tasks? So the water gets a little bit muddied with life leases in regards to maintenance for big things and future things, and you want to get clarity in your contract before you proceed. In terms of building amenities, huge difference. And between condos, there's huge differences. Between life leases, there's huge differences. So you really have to do your research and know what amenities and services are important to you. So most condo buildings have a common lounge, a community hall, a social center, something where owners can gather with friends, family, neighbors. If you are in a condo complex, whether adult bungalow or apartment style, you may have a fitness room, you may have a guest suite, you may have a games area, so pool, shuffleboard, darts, those sorts of things, craft room, a workshop, library. Those are kind of the common things we see in a lot of condo buildings. And then very limited number of condo complexes and buildings have an indoor pool, hot tub, sauna, outdoor courtyards with possibly gardens, movie room, or barbecue areas. Life leases may have all of this. And they generally have what's considered like class space. So movie room, art studio, greenhouse, and different dining rooms if they do offer meals there. And often there's a concierge or front desk so that there is somebody to go to if you have questions or concerns. So both can offer a lot of amenities. It really just depends on the building, what way they take shape. In a condo, generally all social activities where residents gathered are resident-led. So sometimes by the board of directors, sometimes people sign up to be on different committees to run the card group and the Friday night potluck and plan a Christmas party and things like that. In a life lease, often there is a recreation coordinator if there is a number of services. If there's just suites, it may be resident-led. So you've got either resident-led, recreation director-led, or maybe a combination of the two. Many of them will plan outings and tours, especially if they have transportation included in your life lease. But oftentimes there's a large amount of social activities. So again, depending on what you're looking for will dictate what may be a great option for you. Whenever we talk about aging in the future, we always want to talk about care services because we know as we age, there will be times and issues that come up where we may need some additional help. And so we want to know what can be provided there. In a condo, Alberta Health Services home care can still come in, whether you're in an adult bungalow or an apartment style. And you can still hire private care services above and beyond, whether you need some foot care to trim your toenails, whether you need an optometrist to check your eyes, whether you need physiotherapists, all of those services can come into your condo. In a life lease, Alberta Health Services still provides home care. Often they have in-house private care where you can hire their own staff. So they've already known you, they're there, they're quick, they're handy because they're in the building, they're not traveling. And then sometimes these life leases are part of a greater compound complex where there's different buildings with different services. So sometimes you can get a life lease that has supportive living, assisted living, or memory care attached, meaning that you can move to that different part of the compound as your care needs require it. Now, you've still got a contract with your life lease, so it may take some work to move to those different sections in the compound. But it's important to understand what you can or cannot access directly or which is accessed through Alberta Health Services. So again, quite a few different options for care and meeting your needs as time goes on. Value over time. So when you purchase a condo, you leave it when you decide to leave it, either because you've decided to move, to go to retirement living, to move to nursing home, you've passed away. But that's to leave that condo. You can either leave it to somebody else in your family and they can move in as long as, they meet the age requirements, or you can sell it. It is subject to the market, so I know condos have taken a little bit of a hit over the last 4 and 5 years, but generally they appreciate. Generally they gain some value, and we know that we're kind of at the bottom end of our condo market. So we know we're going to start to see that upswing happen. And so those that are investing in condos now, it's a great time because you're getting in at that low point, and then you should appreciate some value over time. The longer you live there, often the more you can appreciate. So your investment, whether it was 200 or 300,000 or 600,000, you might be able to grow that from your condo. A life lease, you do choose when you want to leave it. Again, you want to move to retirement living, you move to nursing home, you pass away. But there's also another caveat in that the operator can ask you to leave. So if they're not happy, if they don't feel you fit in with the community, if your health is failing, they can say, we're pulling back the life lease. Often there is a termination clause in your contract. Frequently what I see in Edmonton is 90 days, so 3 months. So even if you pass away, your family is possibly paying and carrying the cost of that suite for up to 3 months. Whereas when you're in a condo, you could possibly sell it and be out of it in 2 weeks, or it could take many months to sell. And sometimes there's clauses, you just have to really read your contract, where you are responsible for costs until somebody else is found for that suite. And who knows what that timeline could be like. Some life leases do operate on a market style in that they'll sell the suite to somebody else. They still have to apply, they still have to fit the criteria, and they still have to make an equity payment, but the suite is sold on the market. So you might still be subject to the market. It really depends how they manage admissions and terminations in that life lease building. So it's important to understand all parts of your contract because it is detailed. So as we're talking about sort of that termination piece, with a condo, it is capable of appreciation. Generally, you have lower monthly payments over time. So yes, you may have condo fees of $300 a month, but that's much less than $1,200 a month. So what do those costs look like after 5 years in both? Understand and add up those costs. Condo, you can still leave it as part of an inheritance. A life lease, that equity payment you pay $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $600,000 has an automatic depreciation of often 4 to 8% is what I'm seeing often in contracts right now. And that means that if you move out in a month because your health changed and you can't live there, or your family moved across country and you wanted to follow them, automatically after a month, you've lost that 4 to 8%. You can't gain it back. There is no capability of gaining value or appreciating. So your money just sits, doesn't move up, doesn't move down. Whereas with a condo, if you purchase and you've still got some investments, those investments can continue to grow from the sale of your house or things like that. You may have those higher monthly payments, so you need to calculate what that looks like over 5 years, 10 years, your timeline. Sometimes you can leave that equity payment to family. Sometimes there is a penalty if you pass away and you're not giving 3 months notice. And sometimes there's a chance that family can take over that life lease, but they have to reapply. They can't just transfer title because there is no title. They're essentially saying, you know, I'd like to move into mom's life lease suite and go through that entire process, and they can be told yes or no, and then family could inherit that life lease. So it can get a little bit muddy waters, it can get a little bit complex, and you need to understand that. So figuring out the best option for you starts with research. Go view both options. Look at condos that fit your criteria. Look at life leases that fit your criteria, because you need to understand what you're getting. Condos will often be more space in terms of suite size than a life lease, because with a life lease, you get lots of social space and dining rooms and different spots to entertain and visit with, where you won't always get that in a condo. So sometimes size of suite, getting to see them and see condos and see life leases is going to help you get a sense of that. Review both short-term and long-term options for both. What are your costs after a year? What are your costs after 5 years, after 10 years? And know all your fees. Know about your utilities, your insurance, your property taxes that might be due, things like that, and understand that. How long do you plan to live there? For owning, I've always said if it's going to be 10 years or more, own. Because we've got such good prices right now where we are at sort of the bottom of the market and we expect that things will start rising, if you're going to be there 5 years or more, you can actually gain some value. So owning is great if you're going to be there for 5 years or more. For life lease, you really need to be there at least 3 to 10 years is what I suggest. And these are strictly my guidelines and my personal opinion. So do what you want and what works best for you. But you want it to be a bit of time that you're going to be there, because you've got that automatic depreciation, that 4 to 8% you're going to lose. So you don't want to move out after a year. But at the same time, if you were selling your family home and you lived in a life lease longer than 10 years, well, you could have taken that equity payment and invested that and lived off of that, because it's still gaining some value. And so to lose that potential to make revenue, to gain retirement funds, to lose that can be hard. So you have to evaluate what works best for you. And then how can it support your needs? And this is where we're talking a little bit about hobbies. We're talking a little bit about health. We're talking a lot about the future. If you got a walker or a wheelchair, will that setting work? If you needed a full-time care provider, is there space in the bathroom for that care provider to help you use the toilet, use the shower? What does that look like? And so know what the limitations there are, because not every residence we move to is going to be able to be our forever home. But we need to know that it'll meet our needs for a while, and what does that look like? At the end of the day, you need to decide which option is best for you. There's no right or wrong when it comes to a condo versus a life lease. It's all about what works best for you. So I do have some information and guides on my website. If you go to jolynsalesedmonton.com/resources, this video will get put there hopefully by the end of the weekend. I do have a rate sizing guide you can download. I do have a condo buying guide you can download. And I have many other videos and starting to build a resource library of worksheets. I am working on a worksheet of condo versus life lease so that you can work through it and kind of tally up totals at the end and see which one you're leaning towards. So keep a close eye on my website for that. Probably in the next couple of weeks. It's a busy time right now, so I'm not sure it's going to get completed as quick as I want it to. If you want to know about when worksheets get released, if you want VIP information related to real estate in the market, you can sign up at jolynsellsedmonton.com for my monthly newsletter. There's a entry opportunity every month for a $200 value gift card that you can enter via email. And so simply send me your email address or sign up on my website and let me know that you'd want to be a part of this. And you'll have access to all these great resources and be the first to know as things get released. So before I turn off the recording and start into questions and comments, I want to make sure you have all of my contact information here. You can most certainly give me a call, send me a text. For real estate inquiries, there is absolutely no charge for initial consultation. So whether you're thinking of selling, whether you're thinking of buying, and generally for those considering buying, generally there's no fees at all for my services. My service fees are generally paid by sellers. And so if you need help finding condos and figuring out the best option for you, there's no fees to my services. So give me a call and we can start with a chat about what's important to you and what you're looking for and get you searching in your right criteria. So I'm just going to get things shut off for recording and then we'll start questions right away here.